Me too.
Which one of y'all? Yes, positive.
Where's Lisa's name?
There, she's on there.
Who is on there?
It's, well, I told them to change. It's Horsford, Kelly, Lisa McBath. You all can come up. We have Lisa. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Steven Horsford from the great state of Nevada, 4th Congressional District, and I'm very proud sponsor of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, and I'm proud that it has passed the House 220 to 207, and it is one of 4 public safety bills that were passed today by the House of Representatives that are about reducing crime, saving lives, and breaking the cycle of violence. And I want to personally thank my colleagues, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, Lucy McBath, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, and Congressman Joe Neguse for your just unwavering support in making sure that we were able to get to this victory. This has been a lot of work to ensure that this bill was not left out, that the communities that benefit from the community violence intervention funding of over $5 billion over 8 years, and the $1.5 billion for investment in Opportunity Youth that Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester helped to advance. I am just so honored and proud to work with all of you, and to Senator Cory Booker, who is the sponsor in the Senate, and of course our chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce Beatty, who was involved in around-the-clock negotiations over the last few days to ensure that the vote happened, that we had the votes to pass the rule, and that all 4 bills moved forward, and they did. I just want to say that, crime and violence, they don't happen in a vacuum. And for a lot of times we tend to focus on the events after the crime occurs. And this legislation is all about doing the hard but necessary work to prevent crimes from happening at all, and to stop those crimes from happening in the communities that are disproportionately affected. And the work of the organizations who have led this, from the Community Justice Action Fund to Brady to Everytown to Giffords, and definitely to the CVI programs like Safe Streets Baltimore, who are here, I want to say thank you, because you exemplify the best of our communities and what it is we're doing, which is saving lives, reducing crime, and breaking the cycle of violence. I'll just close by saying, it's personal, because when I was 19 years old, my father was shot and killed when I was a freshman in college. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye or to have the opportunity for him to see me graduate from school, to go on and start my family, raise 3 children, to go on to work in my community running nonprofit organizations, and now to be a member of Congress. But to be here to cast such an important, significant vote, it is an honor not only to my father, but to every other family that has lost a loved one to senseless gun violence or any type of violence in our communities. But this is not about the pain. This is about the opportunity. And I want us to focus on the investment in people that is going to create the hope and the aspirations that every person grows up with, They just need that chance to fulfill their purpose. Someone gave me that chance. That's why I am standing here today, and that is why I am so honored to have played a role in getting this legislation over the victory line. And we will continue to work and fight to keep our communities safe, to reduce crime, to save lives, and to break the cycle of violence. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Congresswoman Robin Kelly, my sister from Chicago, who is just, I'll just say from the standpoint, I called her in December of 2021 after reading about the amount of violence that had occurred in her city in just one weekend. And I said, Robin, what can I do to help you in your community, and what can we do together to make sure that we can break the cycle of violence? And I just want to thank you for the work you do, because every single day people die, and they're not always talked about, but they're being remembered by us in this legislation. Robin Kelly.
Thank you so much, Steve, and you have really turned pain into passion. And I'm so proud to be standing alongside you, Lucy McBath, Lisa Blunt Rochester, and Cory Booker in the Senate, because we've done good, and we've done good with your leadership. And when you think about it, we haven't passed a gun violence prevention or any positive gun bill in 30 years. And to think, we just passed the major package 10 days ago, or whatever it was, and now we passed a major package today. So I'm so proud to have been a part of it. And I forgot about when Steven called me that Saturday afternoon when I was trying to relax, and he said, "What are we gonna do?" And I said, "We're gonna have a meeting." And then we had a meeting, and this is what has happened from all of this, from all of my work and all of their hard work. And this shows that prevention really counts. When I think about all the moms that I deal with every week in Chicago that have lost their kids, and they're wondering, do people still care? This is sending a message to them that yes, people still care. And I operate under the mantra that we all do better when we all do better. And this legislation will help us all do better. So I'm so proud to be here. Couldn't be with a better group of colleagues for all of their efforts and work, and love each and every one of them, and all the advocates standing behind us. We couldn't do it without you. We could not do it without you. You are definitely the wind beneath our wings and above our wings too. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague from Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester.
I'm like, I want to first start off by thanking Steven Horsford for your leadership. The incredible thing for me is that I get to work with these incredible individuals. I don't know if Robin had to catch her plane, but has been on the forefront before I even got to Congress. And Lucy, who came after I got to Congress and just kind of picked up the ball and ran. And I think what it really typifies and what it really symbolizes is that one of us alone can't get these kinds of things done. It is truly the collective of all of us. And what's so special about Break the Cycle of Violence and this legislation is that it is not just some pie in the sky idea that somebody had. It is truly based on evidence-based best practices. It is based on what we heard from that. Did I hear a clap on the evidence-based? Yeah, right. This is like, it's evidence-based, and it's also from the people, the ones who are most impacted, the ones who are closest to it and can tell us what really works. And so I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm glad that our team was able, as the former Secretary of Labor in Delaware, we know how important opportunities are for young people as well, to make sure that they don't turn or be distracted or pulled into a life of violence. We want to give them opportunities. So the impact grants, getting that in was really important to us, because again, we want to get the money to where the people are so that they can make the change that they need to see. So I am grateful to be a part of this. Steven knows, look, I was just talking to Lucy as well. I always quote a Beyonce song at these things. And the last one was we might have had Lemonade at one point. The last one was You Won't Break Our Soul. And that's exactly why today I'm so excited that we are standing here, because we recognize that the only way we win is when we put love on top. I'm going to turn it now to Lucy McBath, the champion, the Congresswoman from the great state of Georgia.
Well, I couldn't be more pleased to be here, and I had a whole script, but I'm just going to speak from my heart, as my colleagues have done. I could not be more proud to stand here with our leader, Representative Steven Horsford, my good friend and ally, Lisa Blunt Rochester, and my friend that even before I came to Congress, Robin Kelly, and all of our community partners who have been on the front lines in our communities fighting for safer neighborhoods. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And you know, everyone knows my story. Everyone knows how and why I've come to Congress. So I won't go and I won't recount that story. But I say thank you for Jordan. And I say thank you for Trayvon. And I say thank you for Ahmaud Arbery. I say thank you for every young black man and woman, every individual in our country that has been under the assault of unnecessary gun violence. This is an answer today. What we are doing today is an answer. We are addressing the social determinants within the communities that need the help the most. We're addressing these social determinants. We're making sure that they have the resources and the tools and the means, that these organizations will have the resources to be able to combat gun violence and violence at its core, to deter what we see happening all across our communities, all across this great nation. So I am so grateful to each and every one of our partners. And thank you for those of you that are on the ground each and every single day. You make a difference. Don't stop. We need your voices. And as we understand and know that the policy that we're able to pass here in Washington, it doesn't start from the top down. It starts from the bottom up. And these are the partners, these are the voices that we need to make sure that everyone can live in America safely without unfettered access to violence. But once again, on behalf of my son Jordan, I say thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. And we've also been joined by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, who is also the chair of the subcommittee on crime and justice that oversees the jurisdiction where a number of these bills went through. I want to thank her for her leadership and making sure that these bills remained a priority with the Judiciary Committee and the package that was been done and all the other work that you've done. We stand on your shoulders and others in our caucus who have made these issues a priority for a long time. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee.
I'm honored to stand here with champions. For too long, victims of crime have felt both lost and lonely. The United States Congress has had a reformational change. When Lucy McBath and Steve Horsford came to the grounds of this place, they began to establish the sacredness of realizing that we cannot continue to do nothing. And so I wanted to come to let them know that the powerful voices that they have offered through personal stories have been a seismic change on the thinking of the Congress and the White House. Along with their colleague and friend Lisa Blunt Rochester, who is a co-sponsor of this legislation, all co-sponsors, as we have supported the idea and now the mechanism of intervening on violence, rather than leaving victims in the trash heap of life, wondering, does anyone care? Can anyone stop the violence? As Congressman Horsford said to me on the floor, we want to stop bending over caskets And we want to stop the violence. We want to prevent it before it starts. $1.5 billion for training of people to know how to intervene, to know how to stop the 12 midnight cycle of gun violence in the dark of night, or just sheer what we call in our communities the breaking in of houses when people are in them, scaring families together and causing a massive loss of life, or taking lives senselessly, or as I was at a community event, just getting out of the car, and a gang started a gunfight a few feet from me in the street, in the neighborhood, hearing the gunfire being thrown to the ground because no one knew where it was. And let me be very clear, Congressman Horsford, I had my 7-year-old grandchild because you know how difficult it is to spend time with family. So on a public event that I was going to, it had children there, and I said, let me take my grandchild today. We both were thrown to the ground. But what disturbs me most, the impact on other people. The impact, if you will, on a mother who called the police. I said it on the floor. It was 2 a.m. in the morning. Her husband and child had left, allegedly for some purpose of go to a store or some meetup, sad to say. And she called the police about mid-morning. When I say that, I'm talking about like in the night, 3 a.m. I can't find my husband and I can't find my baby in the car seat. The husband was found dead at one spot and the car was found in another spot and the toddler was dead. $1.5 billion and $5 billion for community grants. I don't know what we could imagine today. Victims legislation, training legislation, mental health legislation, but the legislation that is a crowning jewel is the one that says America can do better. And we can do better by insisting that violence stops in America, whether it's rural or urban, or it is any jurisdiction that you may have. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for this bill to be signed by the President of the United States, and for these grants to come out, and for victims, and for people, and for young people to finally put down the gun and say there's something else to my life. I can do something else. I'm putting the gun down because Steven Horsford cared. Lucy McBath cared. I joined them in caring. The Democrats joined them in caring. And we hope that some good thinking people on both sides of the aisle recognize that the only way America's going to come to our highest values is when we put down the gun, stop the violence, and begin to embrace a light of brightness in the future. I want to thank you, Congressman Horsford, for your courage, and all of the community justice allies for their courage as well. This couldn't be a better day. Congratulations to you.
Let me just introduce and bring to the podium a phenomenal organizer who's making sure that communities that are impacted and the people who know best how to work with law enforcement, with the faith community, with nonprofits who have the answer to bring the people closest to the pain into the solution. Greg Jackson with the Community Justice Action Fund, the leadership of the CBI programs across the country.
Wow. That was the best intro ever.
He means it.
That means a lot. The cycle of violence is something that is frankly destroying our democracy, destroying our country, traumatizing our communities, but most importantly is breaking the hearts of too many families. Right now, the cycle of gun violence is the #1 cause of premature death for black men, for all youth, the #2 cause for black women, and the #2 cause for Latino men. But this is also costing our economy $557 billion every single year. And the worst toll of all is that every year over 100,000 people are shot or killed by gun violence. But this is more than stats. This same cycle is one that costs Representative Horsford, his father, Representative McBath, her son, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, and Representative Kelly, their families and communities. But it also took the brother of Corey Winfield, who stands behind us. It took the life of one of my mentees, Karan Brown. It took the life of a family friend of ours, Trey, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And that same cycle nearly took my life in April of 2013. And that was less than a mile from here. Less than a mile where the power to break that cycle existed. But today we're excited because this is the largest step in American history to breaking that cycle of violence. $1.5 billion for strategic workforce programs. $5 billion for violence intervention programs. The creation of an Office of Community Violence to lead accountability, innovation, and assistance of those who are putting their lives on the line every single day. But this step would not happen if it wasn't for the thousands of activists, the thousands of leaders, of survivors, and I got to name drop a few folks. The Fun Peace Movement with Erica Ford, Dr. Chico, Amber Goodwin, our founder, Pastor Mike McBride, Arisa Napper-Williams, Marcus McAllister, Dr. Antonio Cediel, Dr. Shawnee Buggs, Anthony Smith, Mike De La Rocha Devone, and so many others. Also, the Invest in Us Coalition, made up of national organizations from Brady, Giffords, Everytown, March for Our Lives, Newtown, Amnesty International, Equality, Justice, Color of Change, NAACP, and so many national groups that stood with this. And we've been working on this for years, y'all. But most importantly, this would not happen without the leadership of our members of Congress standing behind us. And not just any type of members of Congress. These are survivors of gun violence that led the charge. And so from the communities in need of justice, peace, healing, and intervention, we just want to thank you so much. Thank all of you for all that you've done. And we know most importantly that when survivors are empowered to lead, whether that's in the community or in the halls of Congress, that we can achieve change. So we thank you. We thank you for your leadership, and we thank you for all the lives that you have saved by making this stride today. With that said, I want to turn it over to an amazing ally, Angela Farrell-Zabala from Everytown for Gun Safety.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Congressman Horsford, and everyone else here this afternoon. I'm Angela Farrell-Zabala, the Senior Vice President of Movement Building at Everytown for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action. It's an honor to join gun safety champions like Representative Horsford, McBath, Kelly, Blunt Rochester, Jackson Lee, everyone here with us today to celebrate this historic action by the House to pass the Break the Cycle of Violence Act. In memory of all the folks and the lives that were taken from us today, and also the more than 40,000 Americans lost to gun violence every year, and the countless others who are shot and wounded. Make no mistake about it, today's passage is an important step forward for the gun violence prevention movement. Community gun violence disproportionately impacts Black and Brown communities and is concentrated in cities, with just 127 cities accounting for more than half of our nation's gun violence and homicides, with cities nationwide experiencing 34% jump in gun homicide in 2020 and persistent gun violence ever since. Fortunately, community-based violence interruption programs have been working in these cities for decades, leveraging their earned trust and credibility to ensure public safety within their communities via evidence-informed strategies. Strategies which have proven effective at targeting the people and places that drive our gun violence with a public health approach, like street outreach, hospital-based violence intervention programs, place-based strategies that create safe and healthy spaces, and other community-led and community-centered efforts. And Greg shouted out so many people, and I would, if I try to sit here and give all the names, I would certainly miss people. But I want to thank Greg and Community Justice Action Fund, Erica Ford, Pastor Mike, and others who have been on the forefront of this work for decades, and really thinking about all the work in the Invest in Us Coalition. Thank you, Greg and others. for your leadership. We are grateful, and we're grateful to stand with Congressman Horsford when he introduced the Break the Cycle of Violence Act last year in acknowledgement of these incredible life-saving initiatives and a very urgent hope of sustaining and scaling them across the nation to every community in need in this very urgent moment. And today we're thrilled to celebrate this important moment as the Break the Cycle of Violence Act officially passed the House. This will deliver $5 billion in dedicated funding for evidence-informed, community-based violence intervention programs working to reduce gun violence in our most vulnerable communities, and a new $1.5 billion federal grant program for year-round job training and workforce development in communities disproportionately impacted by gun violence. It would make a significant impact and provide much-needed support to communities most heavily affected by gun violence. In the wake of breaking a nearly 30-year logjam in Congress earlier this summer with the bipartisan Safer Communities Act and today's meaningful passage in the House, we continue on the path to progress to help to ensure a safer future for generations to come. We'll still have a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong, there's still much to do. But with today's passage, we have a big step that we're taking and getting closer to treating gun violence as a public health crisis that it truly is, and turning the tide on gun violence in America. Thanks to all of the leaders in the Invest in Us coalition and their leadership in inspiring this path forward. Thank you so much. And with that, I'd love to bring Adzi Bokiwa from Giffords.
Thank you so much to Representative Horsford, Congresswoman McBath, Kelly, and Jackson Lee, as well as Congresswoman Blunt Rochester, and all the survivors of gun violence who are here today. My name is Adzi Bokiwa. I'm the Federal Affairs Director at Giffords, and it's an honor to be with you all today celebrating the passage of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act. Last June, many of us gathered right here in this very spot for the introduction of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act. And since then, this coalition of advocates, survivors, and members of Congress has made it our mission to make sure that the people in our communities who are putting their lives on the line to stop gun violence have the financial support they need to do their life-saving work. Now that the House has passed this bill to provide a historic $5 billion investment in violence intervention programs, our mission is one giant step closer to being realized. We know all too well that gun violence is an epidemic that takes more than 41,000 lives every year. And that epidemic will only end with the comprehensive, community-involved, whole-of-government public health approach that the Break the Cycle of Violence Act supports. $5 billion for evidence-informed violence intervention programs and an additional $1.5 billion for youth workforce training, as well as the creation of a new Office of Community Violence Intervention. Violence intervention programs work, but only when they're properly funded and implemented. But even without that adequate funding, leaders in Black and Brown communities have consistently given their time, efforts, and sometimes even their lives to save others. The historic federal funding in this bill will provide these dedicated outreach workers the resources they require and deserve for their life-saving work. This funding will help more cities across the country adopt CVI programs, stop gun violence before it ever happens, and reverse the dangerous increase in homicides many of our cities have seen over the past few years. Passing this bill is one of the most significant steps forward we can take to end gun violence. So I want to thank all of the members of Congress here today for their support of the bill, all 220 members who voted to pass the bill, and especially want to thank these members in particular for their years-long advocacy to end gun violence. And now it's up to the Senate. We ask the Senate to pass this bill as soon as possible. Thank you.
Sorry, we have two more speakers. Next, we'll introduce Kelly Sampson from Brady.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Sampson, and I'm Senior Counsel and Director of Racial Justice at Brady, one of the nation's oldest gun violence prevention groups. And on behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank Congressman Horsford for his leadership, Congresswoman McBath for her fierce passion about this issue, all the members who voted today. More than 1 in 5 Americans report that they or someone close to them has had a direct experience with gun violence. So it's true that the gun violence epidemic hurts everyone, but gun violence's toll on Black and brown communities is staggering. The gun homicide rate for Hispanics, which is the term the data uses, is more than double that of white Americans. Meanwhile, Black Americans are more than 11 times more likely than white Americans to die by gun homicide, which accounts for a 4-year reduction in life expectancy for Black men. Many were shocked to learn that gun violence is now the leading cause of death for all children nationwide, but it's long been the leading cause of death for Black children and teens, who are 14 times more likely than white children to die by gun homicide. These disparities are not inevitable. The overwhelming share of gun homicides occur in urban communities that systemic racism has segregated, oppressed, and disenfranchised for decades. This, coupled with easy access to firearms, leads to devastating results. Being shot at, or witnessing a shooting doubles the probability that a young person will commit violence in the next 2 years. Indeed, experiencing violence dramatically increases the risk that the victim may become a perpetrator. And the repercussions in Black and brown communities reverberate well beyond the victims themselves. That's why cycles of generational poverty, daily gun violence, and retaliation benefit from community intervention. The pervasive nature of gun violence produces collective trauma, and communities burdened by fear and constant shootings must divert their already limited resources for fighting for basic safety rather than investing in education, economic opportunity, and general quality of life. Beyond the staggering toll of human gun violence, communities that experience higher levels also face enormous financial burdens through depopulation, decreased commercial activity, decreased property values, and fewer jobs. Moreover, a single homicide on average costs American taxpayers nearly $500,000 in direct medical and criminal legal expenses. Deterring violence and preserving the economic stability of communities thus go hand in hand. The Break the Cycle of Violence Act will work directly to address these issues by providing historical investments in communities most impacted by cycles of violence and trauma. By taking a public health approach and investing in evidence-based programs, we can not only alleviate the daily toll of gun violence, but we can also begin to undo years of disinvestment and economic injustice in the most impacted communities. So once again, my colleagues and I are so grateful to the members who have put so much effort into passing this bill. And now I will pass it over to Corey Winfield from Safe Streets, Baltimore.
All right, this person deserves a big introduction. So I'm gonna do my best. But this money means nothing if it doesn't get to the organizations that are working hard to save lives every day. Every conflict that we've seen in our communities could have been prevented. Only 30% of homicides in the Black community are connected to another felony. Only 11% of homicides are connected to gang violence. The bulk of gun violence in our communities are interpersonal conflicts that just go too far. And we have leaders in our communities that are working hard every day to intervene those conflicts and prevent violence from happening and save lives. And they're saving lives every day. Right now, they're saving lives. But they're under-resourced, under-supported, and underfunded. And this brother right here, when he put his life on the line to start doing violence intervention, he was getting paid $11 an hour, risking his life every day for $11 an hour because he cared about saving his community. And so I'm just extremely proud and honored to introduce Corey Winfield from Safe Streets, Baltimore, to share more about this life-saving work and what this means for America and for communities today. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, this is a touching moment for me. 2006, I was released from prison after doing over 2 decades. 6 days after I was home, my little brother was gunned down in front of our house. Shot twice in the back of the head. And 2 days before that, he told me about an altercation that he had with a young man that lived down the street about a basketball game a year before. And I blew it off. Because to me, at that time, a fight, we had countless of fights in the neighborhood. But I'm still thinking 20 years ago. Until we got that call that he was laying in front of our house, riddled with bullets. It rocked me and it crushed my family. It actually sent me back on the verge of going back to prison. I wanted to kill the person who killed my brother. I seeked out to do that. My mother stopped me after a week of me going out every night searching for this person. I come in the house 2 in the morning. She tells me, please stop. I know what you're doing. I can't lose another baby. We sat on that sofa and cried. I've never cried. So when I tell you that this means something, thank you. Because we didn't have nowhere to go. I didn't know where to turn. We didn't have a Safe Streets program at that time. We didn't have a gang intervention program at that time. All I knew is I had to do something because I had to save the next little brother. So when Greg talks about I was making $11 an hour, I was. $11.23, and I was standing in front of guns every night, refusing to move. AK-47s pointed at me. It's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the police ain't around, and it's just me and 4 or 5 people, and everybody got guns out, and they telling me to get the hell out the way, and I'm saying, no, we gonna talk this out. Let's find a way to resolve this issue. And when I get down to the issue, it's about, I don't like how he looked at me. Our young black men are dying in these streets because of a look. Because a step on a shoe, you don't know the outcome of that. A pastor told me the other day, he said, man, they so disrespectful. I was talking to him, he looking all around. I said, no, sir. I said, that's respect. Because in their world, looking a person eye to eye, will get your brains blown out. The abnormal is the normal in the black community today. That's what's going on in these streets. And today, we have saved a lot of lives by the passage of this bill. Today, we are going to make sure that we have bodies out there on the corners, on the street corners, going door to door, addressing issues as they happen. I have got up 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and stood on bus stops so mothers can go to work because of fear of retaliation, because of what their son have done or what their nephew have done, and the word came, we gonna get your mother. That's what this bill is for. That's the prevention that we're talking about. That does not get captured on the news. Me making sure that she can get to work because she said, Corey, I just started the job. I can't take off. I said, don't worry, I'm gonna be there. And we watched the car go down the street 3 times. But because I was standing there, they kept going. And she was dead scared. I had to ride all the way to work with her. That's the intervention that we're talking about. That's the saving of lives that we're talking about. So for the first time in years, when I thought it wasn't no hope and I wouldn't give up, I kept getting up, going to work. I kept standing. I used to wear this shirt so much. My girlfriend said, if I see you in another Safe Street shirt. But the message had to be told. It has to have been out there. Gang members called my phone and asked me to settle disputes. We have the opportunity of employing people, young men and women, that can diffuse, detect situations, and intervene and stop gun violence. Right now in Baltimore City, we are over 250 so-called murders. And we have 10 sites. And I'm gonna tell you that if we didn't have those 10 sites, we would probably be at 400 right now. So this will make sure that we can get more people and more sites, so I can train them and get them out there, because their little brothers are dying. So before I leave, I want to say this to everybody that's watching this. That promise that you make your loved ones before you leave the house, that I'll see you later, this bill is going to help me make sure you keep that. I'll see you later.
There's no better way to end the press conference than those words, Corey, and you just bring to heart the real meaning behind this policy and the lives that it can change and the impact that it can make. And we want, thousands of more Coreys all across the country who are trained in this evidence-based approach to prevent and intervene on violence, not only gun violence, but any form of violence. So again, I just want to thank my colleagues, thank all the gun violence prevention groups. This was one of 4 bills that was passed today by the House of Representatives. It builds on the work that we passed in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, where we did invest $250 million in community violence intervention. This bill goes further with $5 billion and $1.5 billion to help make sure opportunity youth, 16 to 24, are also a big part of the solution going forward. So thank you for joining us. Let's go out and get the work done, and I appreciate everyone being here today. God bless you.